And also you had I had another document. I ain't bring it out with me, but you had men out here that was shopping for their damn women in ancient Athens, man. That's happening here in America. It was in the Agora of Athens that the great philosopher Socrates questioned the market goers on their understanding of the meaning of life, attracting a crowd of Athenian youth who enjoyed seeing the more pretentious of their elders made fools of. In this marketplace one day, the young poet Aristocles, now you might say, who the hell is that? The young poet Aristocles, son of Ariston, heard Socrates speaking, went and burned all his works, and became the philosopher known as Plato. Check that out.
Wow.
So Socrates is out there in the Agora debating with people, and this young man named Aristocles heard him speaking, went home, burnt all his books, and then became known as the philosophers that we know today as Plato. But you know they was jakes. So they was actually converting people to their philosophies out there in Athens, out there in the Agora of Athens. Matter of fact, go back to that word Agora, see if it says word, see if the debate is up there.
Let me see.
It says, his philosophical dialogues coupled with his finding of the academy, the first university, and his role as the teacher of Aristotle, who then was the tutor to Alexander the Great, changed Western philosophy. Where we at? Western Hemisphere. The Agora sound just like 34th Street. Go ahead.
Yeah, it said, this the second definition, part A, it says, for public debating.
For public debating. So Paul's out there debating, man. He's out there debating. Just like y'all out there debating now in the Agora. You know? You got something to say?
Yeah, that was comparing that whole time, like Mars Hill and all that, to 125th Street. If you go out there, there's a whole bunch of jakes with all these different...
You're going to get into that. You're going to get into that, you know? You're going to get into that, you know? In Rome, the Agora was served in much the same way as it did in Greek city-states. In the Roman satirist Juvenal, the Latin poet Horace, as well as other writers, found much of their inspiration in watching and listening to those who gather for shopping in the open-air market. Now I'm going to go, this is something called Intellectual Life in Athens During Its Height. Another webpage you can look up. Because of its democracy and reputation for openness, Athens became a magnet for new thinking during the 5th century BC, playing host to a remarkable collection of individuals whose unique contributions to learning have formed much of the foundation of Western civilization. That shows you the white man just takes from other kingdoms. Thinkers called sophists migrated to the city from their traditional homes on the coast of Western Turkey. Historians such as Herodotus moved to the city to complete their researches. Athens' homegrown talent, its playwrights used the new theaters to examine what it really meant to be human. Whereas the traditional center of intellectual life in ancient Greece had been the symposium, the drinking parties held by wealthy aristocrats. In Athens, the focus of intellectual inquiry began to shift. Places such as the Agora, marketplace, and theater also became important and less exclusive. Venues for new thinking and discussions, especially after the philosopher Socrates took the streets in his never-ending pursuit of the truth. Thus by the time Athens had reached its height in the 430s BC, its greatest democratic leader, Pericles, could quite reasonably declare, our whole city is in education, for our citizens excel, all men in versatility, resourcefulness, and brilliance. So what does this go to show you? It said in Athens, in the Agora, it said venues for new thinking and discussions, especially after the philosopher Socrates took the streets in his never-ending pursuit of the truth. So when people wanted to pursue the truth, they came out to the Agora, which means market when you look it up. So they came out to that public assembly and was hearing people debate. You know? There's another one. This is from a website called Agora Institute. It says, why Agora? In most ancient cities, the Agora was an open public space where goods and services were traded, but that also hosted parades and races, government buildings and libraries, courts and theaters, temples and schools. It represented the civic center and the nucleus of the city and housed the institutions that constituted the common and shared life of Greek citizens. Athens had the most developed agora. It was the political and administrative center of the city as well as the place where social, commercial, and religious activities concentrated. It served as a piazza, the town center and gathering place where Athenians would meet to conduct the affairs of public life. Along its porches and colonnades, Stoa in Greek, many of the ancient philosophers Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Zeno would gather to debate and teach their pupils. So they was out there in the agora bringing in people to the philosophies that they believed in and debating with other people. So what the hell is wrong with you guys, man? You guys got agoraphobia. That means fear of public spaces. That's what guys don't come out, man. Several of the great ideas about Western heritage, democracy, the dialectic, the Hippocratic Oath, Pythagorean theorem, the empirical method were likely debated, discussed, and developed in the agora. I think I got one more thing here.
Oh,
What happened now?
this nigga Nate saying you can't learn nothing from man on the street corners.
Yeah.
That just came in my head as you were
Hey,
talking.
well, he going off.
Yep.
Paul's in the agora. He was in the marketplace, man, debating. This is on another website called Sweet 101. Now, some of this stuff here has the same document as it had in the other one. All right, I'm gonna go this one. It says the market as public forum. The other one was basically the same thing I read on Wikipedia, this Sweet 101 thing. So I'm gonna go over to the next document. I mean, later on in that same webpage where it says the market as public forum. It was in the agora of Athens that the great philosopher I heard, nope, that part was there too. Okay, I'm gonna jump a little bit down to the last paragraph. Socrates was not the first, nor will he be the last, to use the agora to advantage in spreading his views of life and the world. The great sophist Protagoras taught in the agora before Socrates did, for it is said Hyphaeus and the Cynic philosopher Diogenes of Sinope made his home there, in a discarded bathtub. Aristophanes, the great comic playwright, seems to have modeled a number of his characters on people he overheard shopping and arguing in the agora. So you had a comic who wrote playwrights named Aristophanes. He modeled some of his characters after the people that he's seen in the agora, that people that he's seen shopping and arguing. And what they mean arguing? They was debating. So many of his playwrights he wrote about the people that he heard arguing and shopping, that he's seen shopping in the agora. The greatest statesman Pericles spoke in the marketplace, and many of the most important proclamations of the city were posted there and, of course, argued over. All right? So, we go to 18 verse now.
Acts 17 and 18.
So it says he debated in the market daily with them that met with him. So he's out there debating. He was debating the truth. You had guys that believe in this philosophy, guys that believe in that philosophy. And what Paul was doing was he was cutting their philosophies, telling that that's false, and bringing out the truth of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, the gospel. Go on.
Acts 17 and 18. Then certain philosophers of the Epicureans and of the Stoics encountered him.
So you had certain philosophers in the agora, a place for debate where people were shopping, buying food and all that. Philosophers, which philosopher means love of knowledge, philosophers of the Epicurean philosophy and of the Stoic philosophy, they encountered Paul there. Now, there's a lot of information I got here on the Epicurean and Stoic philosophies. I'm not going to read all of it. I'm just going to give you a background of both, because Lord willing, in the next show when we continue it, I'll go into what it was that they believed in, you know. This it says Stoics and Epicureans by Mark Moore and Mark Scott. It says Epicureans, a background. It says one Epicureans, a background. These philosophers followed the teachings of Epicurus, 341 to 270 BC. So this is actual philosophy people believed in. All right, 341, 270 BC, of the Athenian colony of Samos. He taught his students in his garden, and they had to learn their doctrines by heart. He had more devoted followers and bitter enemies than any of the early philosophers. No other figure of importance arose from his school, although some of the writings of Lucretius, 94 to 55 BC, still survive. Now, so I'm going to read right there, because there's a lot of information on it. So now I'm going to go into the Stoics. Like I said, there's a lot of information on both of them. I'm just going to give you a background on both, and then Lord willing, in the next show, when Paul was continuing to debate with them, we can go into how the things he was saying with his debating, how he was cutting what they actually believe. So this is 2 Stoics. A, background. The philosophy came from Zeno, which we read Zeno, It says Zeno was gathering pupils in the agora. The philosophy came from Zeno of Cyprus, 335 to 263 BC, who died at the age of 96. He regularly held his classes in the porches of the marketplace called Stoa, which you read also, specifically the Stoa Poikile, the painted porch. Thus came the name Stoics. He was the first to scientifically study Greek grammar and vocabulary. Famous Stoics, Aratus of Soli, 315 to 240 BC, was a Stoic. I don't want to get into that yet, so I'm not going to read that part, you know. 2. Brutus, the man who killed Julius Caesar. So the man who killed Julius Caesar was a Stoic. Check that out. Shakespeare does an interesting character study of this man. Stoicism was well known in Tarsus. Where was Paul from? Tarsus, a Roman province. That's why Paul knew so much about this. So they're trying to go step with the Paul. Paul, like, I know all about that, man. Who do you think you are? You know? Like when guys try to come up and debate Islam, yeah. That would be like, man, you know, go out there in Brooklyn, look like damn Mecca back in the 80s. Because they knew about them damn Muslim guys, them 5% of dudes. You might have Jakes in Philly that might be teaching. They might say, I know all about that Muslim stuff. Because, you know, out there in Philly, you got a lot of Muslims out there. So he grew Stoicism was very popular in Tarsus. Which Paul is known as what? Paul of Tarsus. He was a Roman, but he was called Paul of Tarsus because Tarsus was the province of ancient Rome. So Paul knew all about it, man. It wasn't nothing new to Paul. Paul, like, I know about that BS. A list of 6 famous Stoics came from Tarsus. Seneca, 1 to 65 AD, was a contemporary of Saul, it says here. He was from the Equestrian order and the brother of Gallio, proconsul of Achaia, who was mentioned in Acts 18:12. He was a tutor of the young Nero, but finally resigned in despair.